大家
Love for everyone here.
We are TransportAsian.
Good morning again and welcome. My name is Jessie C. I work in MTA Headquarters Labor Relations People Org, and I am one of the leaders in the employee resource group called TransportAsian. Today, we bring together New York City Transit, MTA Bus, and MTA Headquarters to celebrate Asian and Pacific Islander Month. Jay Patel is our executive sponsor, and with me is Cindy, our co-chair, Q, our marketing lead, and Divya, one of our members as well as one of the leaders in the multicultural employee group, and she works closely with Joan Schaffer and Gloria Bash. And not sure if any of you would like to also say hi and self-introduce. Oh, I think you're on mute. Oh, okay.
Hi.
Anything else? I don't know if I missed anything. You want to say a little about yourself?
Shout out to the Department of Security. Hi.
All right, I'll continue.
Yeah, thank you, Jessie. Good morning, everyone. I'm Divya from Quality Assurance, Department of Car Equipment. And as Jessie mentioned, I'm co-leading the multicultural TEG and under the leadership of Michael Collins and Kim Ward, who is our executive sponsor. And yes, an active member of TransportAsian as well. And as you all know, we have 9 transit employee groups or employee resource groups, we can say, under the Diversity and Inclusion Initiative in alignment with NYCT's values and goals to become the employer of choice. And welcome everyone to this platform for the celebration of Asian and Pacific Islander Month. Over to you, Jessie.
All right, thank you. So as many of you may be aware, since 2020, there has been an increasing amount of anti-Asian sentiments. And in 2021, the anti-Asian hate has escalated to a frightening level across the nation. So today, in addition to celebrating the Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we also want to send a positive message to our API communities and all employees that there are people listening and that efforts are being made to acknowledge and address events happening around us, not only for our frontline workers, but also for those who will be soon returning back to the office. We hope to create more awareness and understanding through discourse, individually, collectively, and through action. So these are new and changing times for the API communities, and it's important that we show support for one another and for other groups. We are all stronger together. Through this event, though this event is in a celebration of the Heritage Month, it is also a celebration about diversity, about inclusion, about me, and also about you. With that, we now present a short video that shows a little more about us, including some of the events we've either sponsored or participated in. Hope you enjoy.
Come join us.
欢迎大家
Love for everyone here.
We are TransportAsian.
Thank you. So now we get to the good part. Many of you know our very special guest speakers here. Though you know them, I'm going to do a quick introduction. So first up is Sarah Feinberg, who is the interim president of New York City Transit. Before that, she was a member of the MTA board. She is the founder of Feinberg Strategies, a strategic business and communications consultant practice focused on the tech sector. She has also served as the administrator of the Federal Railroad Administration, which is the sole safety regulator of the U.S. rail system. Feinberg was nominated for this post by President Obama and later confirmed by the Republican-led U.S. Senate. She has also previously served as the U.S. Department of Transportation Chief of Staff and served in the Obama administration as Special Assistant to the President and Senior Advisor to the White House Chief of Staff. I mean, there's a lot to say, apologies. But I also want to mention she served on the Amtrak Board of Directors during her time as FRA Administrator and currently serves on the Story Corp's Board of Directors. I also want to mention, this is pretty cool to me. She's also worked in the White House that in response to the country's fiscal and economic crisis, the H1N1 flu pandemic, and other significant crises. Our next speaker is Craig Cipriano, who currently serves as the president of the MTA Bus Company and senior vice president of New York City Transit Department of Buses. He is responsible for managing the largest bus agency in North America with over 2 million daily customers. He also manages the largest paratransit operation in North America. Craig was responsible for a $3.7 billion budget, strategic policy planning, and performance for a combined bus and paratransit annual ridership of approximately 700 million, with 49 operating locations across New York City. There's a lot of stuff, but I'm going to also mention he has over 30 years of public transit experience and proven success as a strategic leader, delivering customers-focused, technological, and data-driven solutions to improve bus and paratransit operations. And our next speaker, who is also our executive sponsor, is Jay Patel. And she has an interesting role currently as a deputy CFO in the new consolidated finance organization, working as the CFO of Transit as we transition, and also part of the transformation team. Prior to the MTA, she worked as CFO at New Jersey Transit, among other different roles. And in addition, she worked for New Jersey Department of Treasury and also for a private shipping company. She has a master's in business administration and a bachelor's of science in finance. So that's my introduction. And now we go on to, the question panel, which I know everyone's very excited to hear. And I'll start off the first question. So to the speakers, tell us about yourself, a bit about your cultural heritage and your Asian Pacific Islander experience.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
I was going to say, who do you want to go first? You tell us.
Anyone is fine. And just a quick question to the audience. For best viewing, to see everyone together, if you select the layout of grid view, that's when you can see all of us together, or yeah. Okay.
Whoever can go first. Let's do Sarah.
Okay, sure. I'll go first. So first of all, thank you for having me. I know you jumped right in with the question, but I'll just say a couple of things at the front, which is thank you for having me, and just nice to be a part of this, to have the opportunity to speak with this group. And I thank Jay for inviting me. And apologies for my video setup here. I had to take my daughter to the dentist this morning, so I'm at home, and my setup's not perfect, but I guess if there's anything from COVID, we've all gotten used to it's, you know, zooming into things from home, from phones and everything else. So, so I'm just delighted to be invited to speak with all of you today and to see so many of your faces. You know, I started, you know, I was on the MTA board for some time, but of course never, you know, rarely got to meet as many MTA employees as I would like, and then started as interim president right when we really were trying to send as many people home as possible. And so I still haven't really gotten to meet as many people as I would like, though that's changing all the time. So hopefully for those of you I haven't met, I'd like to meet you sometime soon. So look, I just want to acknowledge, you know, what a difficult time this is, you know, even beyond so much of the hate and the sort of vitriol that we've seen over the last several months. You know, we've all had a really tough year regardless, a tough year and a half with COVID and trying to work from home, or, you know, many of us are essential workers who've been coming in regardless. And, you know, we're all now sort of getting to a better side of that, but there's lots of anxiety and angst, I think, that comes with that too, because now we're sort of reopening and re-entering and coming back to the office and coming back to our commutes and coming back to the workplace when maybe we haven't been doing that for the last year. Schools are reopening and you know, things are getting more crowded again. So while it's good we've gotten past the last, you know, 14 months of dark times, as I call it, you know, I know there's a lot of anxiety as people return. So and then on top of all of that is some really horrifying and disgusting vitriol that we've seen over the last couple months. So I guess all that is to say it's been a tough time, and I hope that you all, you know, I hope everyone feels like their colleagues and their management and their leadership is with them and supporting them, and you know, sort of in this with, you know, all of our colleagues and friends. So hopefully as people return and as the city reopens, people feel, you know, really you know, supported by the fact that everyone's back in one place, as opposed to feeling even more anxiety. So I've now, that's sort of my intro. I've now rambled for so long I can't remember your question. So let me see if I can remember it, which I think is what's my own background. And I see Jesse nodding, so I got that part right. So I'm actually have only been in New York for a couple of years, and am originally from West Virginia. And I always sort of am amazed by that someone who just moved here a couple of years ago is now you know, working at the transit system, such an important part of the city. So I guess I jumped right into New York City. So I'm from West Virginia. So I grew up in a place where, you know, my graduating class in high school was only 40 people, and, you know, you know, it was one of the biggest cities in West Virginia, but it's only about 45,000 people, and everybody knows everyone. And you know, my mother's family is European, Western European. My father's family were Russian and Estonian Jews, and but we've mostly been in West Virginia and the Baltimore and New York region for, gosh, I think about 150 years now. So but mostly I identify as a West Virginian who like grew up in the woods and still can't believe that I live in New York, and that I wake up every day in one of the biggest cities in the world. So so that's sort of my background. I hope that's helpful. And again, I'm just delighted to be with you today, and thank you for having me. And I'll hand it over to someone else. Maybe I'll hand it over to Craig.
Thank you.
Thanks. So I want to just echo everything that Sarah said. You know, forums like this really give us a chance to speak about today's issues and, you know, come together in solidarity and really, you know, talk about the things that we're all facing. And I thank you, you know, for inviting me here today. A little bit about myself. I was born and bred in Brooklyn. I have a little diversity in my own background. Mom is Jewish and her parents are from Eastern Europe, Poland and Russia. My dad is Italian Catholic from Brooklyn, and his parents were born and bred in Brooklyn. So I had a little diversity in my own household growing up. Just something, you know, just to share about, you know, diversity and inclusiveness. When my mom first introduced my dad, as an Italian Catholic to her parents, she knew that it wouldn't go over very well, being outside the Jewish faith. So he was introduced as Phil Cohen as instead of Phil Cipriano. So that was the introduction there. And quite frankly, they ended up getting married at City Hall. But over the course of time, he ended up being, well loved by mom's parents. But just a little bit about, inclusiveness and how, things have changed a little bit, in the United States. My wife is Puerto Rican, so I have a little bit of diversity in my own immediate household. We have one son who's now 19 years old. So a little bit about me, and growing up in a little bit of a diverse family, as well as my current family, I really value the diversity and inclusion, and really hearing, and valuing different people's thoughts and backgrounds and bringing everyone together, not only in my personal life, but definitely in the workplace. In regards to, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders specifically, growing up in Brooklyn, I grew up in Canarsie. It was really mostly an Italian Jewish neighborhood at the time. Going to high school, I don't recall many Asian American students that I was befriended with or friendly with, but it wasn't until I went to college. I went to Stony Brook University over in Stony Brook. I see Cindy. Okay. So I was the class of 1989, mechanical engineering at Stony Brook University. So as you happen to be, many of my fellow students were Asian Americans studying engineering along with me, and I was a part of many study groups at the time. And what was great about studying with people of different backgrounds is that not only did you get a chance to know them personally and to hear some of their own traditions, and I won't say more importantly, but what I really enjoyed is sharing the foods, quite frankly, right? Everyone had their own. So, while we were all staying up late nights studying for our finals, we all had a chance to taste each other's cooking. So something that I really remember about being in college. I guess moving on to today, in my professional life, specifically, I work very closely with many Asian Americans here at Transit Authority. On my team specifically, Zafira Latif, Sunil Nair, both of Indian descent. Jay here, right down the hall, we work very closely with too. And although she's not in buses proper, I consider her a buses person because of working so closely with her. Again, Dan Ham, Tina Kong, we do have a number of Asian Americans that I do work closely with here in buses on the 30th floor. And, I really have come to really value their input and our relationship with them. So, I look forward to, really having some robust discussions here today. And, I really thank you for, asking me to be a part of this forum. Let me hand it off to Jay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. And thank you, Sarah, for joining us for Asian American and Pacific Islander Month, and Jesse, Cindy, Q, and Divya for hosting. I kind of wanted to run through a couple of stats before I went into sort of my own background. I wanted to say that the Asian population rose 11 to 11.9 million in 2000, and then nearly has doubled to about 23 million by 2019. That's a 95% increase in the Asian population in the US. And I think it's even projected to increase to about 46 million by 2060. And so Asians have made a tremendous sort of increase, right, in the population from the early 1900s, I'll say. I was looking at the stats, which thank you, Zafira. In like 1960, we had under 1 million Asian Americans in the US. So the growth has just been tremendous for us. And so that's partially as, the US opens its borders and people are migrating to the US. And it's just, a great number to be proud of, I'll say. A little bit about me and my background. My parents are from India, born and raised in India, I'll say. I was the first US born in the family, my entire family, both on my mom's side and my dad's side. So they migrated to the US in the 70s. They had a very traditional marriage, I'll say. They're from Gujarat in India. They saw each other once before they got married. The second time was their marriage day. And so that sounds very odd to us in America, but that is very traditional in India. And to some extent, still something that happens in India. I see the Vias nodding, right? It's a little bit more dating, but it's still conceptually an arranged marriage, not like what we see here in the US. I was born in Hoboken, New Jersey, which I think most of you probably know. However, it was very different back in the 80s and 90s when I was growing up. It was a very port city, as they considered it, and it had many diverse backgrounds. There was definitely pockets of Hoboken where you can find, we lived on the Asian street, like the Indian street, we called it. It was, between 8th and 9th and Park Avenue was considered a little like India. And different parts of Hoboken, which is just 1 square mile, had all vast cultures. I went to public school in Hoboken, which exposed me to a very diverse background. We had multicultural individuals at our school. So I've culturally grown up in a situation where ethnicity I was surrounded by ethnicity, which gives me a great sort of background. I, went to Rutgers University in New Brunswick, which is another very diverse university, right? Large, but also many diverse people. I have so many different types of friends culturally, and was exposed to a lot of different foods and traditions and items of that sort. So I'll leave it at that. But I will say I'm a traditional Indian, I'll call it. I watch Bollywood films. Love Indian culture. I do eat meat, but mostly I am a vegetarian. My mom is a pure vegetarian. And so I grew up eating traditional vegetarian Indian food. So a little bit about me and my background.
Thank you. So we'll go to the next question. Or unless, we want to do a self-introduction. I think we mentioned that before. Cindy?
Craig, I did not know that you went to Stony Brook, but Stony Brook, we can rep Stony Brook when we are back in the office together. So for me, I have a little bit of diversity too. I was first generation here, and my parents are from China, so they immigrated here 3 years ago, and I was born here. So I went to Stony Brook, like Craig mentioned, and that's where I met my Indian husband. And now we have a little Chindian baby. She's 5 months old, so that's my diverse background.
Good morning, everyone. Again, when Jay was saying about the noding, I was thinking in some parts of Asia, the noding means yes, and some parts the noding means no. So we have to know the culture of the person who is sitting next to us, to know them, to work with them. And I'm happy that I'm in New York, with the heterogeneous population, and MTA is the best example of the representation of New York. And I was born in India, south part of India, Kerala. And it's known for its lushing greenery, lakes, latex, liquor, and a lot of good things, literacy as well. And what I want to say is, unlike other parts of India, north and south, we eat beef, and we are the coastal line. We have a wide variety of cuisine of fish, beef, meat, all those things, and we eat. And unlike other Indians, I was a little bit American. I chose my life partner, and we took 4 to 5 years for us to convince our families. And my husband was born here, but he studied with me in India. That's how we met. So that's a cross religious way, but the families are all united in that name. And I'm happy that I'm part of MTA. And I have a question that to all of you for the next topic of discussion. What advice do you have for employees, especially the non-Asians who want to be allies with or want to support the other colleagues who are from the API background, API community? Anyone can chime in.
I think I'll
sure.
start.
Sure, Jay. No, please, Jay, please.
Sure. So I was thinking, for that, I think as an organization, right, we provide the space to have these conversations. And I think this event is one of them, but I think all the multicultural TEGs, right, are providing a space for our employees to speak up and attend and ask their questions and let us know what they're feeling. I think that's really important for us as an organization. And I'll let, Craig and Sarah also chime in.
Well, I think everything you just said is right, Jay. And I think now in particular, as the city's reopening and people are coming back to the office and sort of, seeing each other again for the first time in a long time, it feels like a good time to check in with people. And, whether you just like see someone downstairs at, the coffee place, or see them in the elevator, or, see them at just entering the building, I think it's a really good time to just have an open-ended conversation like, hey, how are you doing? It's been a tough year, like, how are you feeling? Is everything going okay? Is there anything I can do to help you? That's sort of how I try to greet people, and just in my daily course of saying good morning or good afternoon, or don't I always see you in line at Starbucks with me, or whatever. It's just a good moment to check in with people, I think.
Yeah. I think I echoed both what Jay and Sarah just said, but one perspective I wanted to share with people is that it's easy as a non-Asian person sort of to watch the news, and when I say it's easy, I mean it's easy to be apathetic, right? And you see the anti-Asian hate crimes happening, and you feel for Asians. However, you don't speak up, or you don't take part in any particular event, that to raise awareness, right? And so you step back and you just watch it. But then, soon, little do you know, soon what happens is then the hate crimes start to move, right? And now we're seeing it's more recently on the anti-Asian Jewish anti-Asian crimes. And the point being is that the one attack on any specific ethnic group is an attack on all of us, right? So what I would say is, we all should step up, right, as Americans and as people to denounce, these kind of hate crimes and the violence that's happening, and take part in different events. What I would want to shout out to Jesse, Cindy, Q, Divya, everyone here, is I see that there are, over the last 2 months, there's multiple transportation events that we all could have been part of, right? We all could raise awareness. So I want to just give a shout out to you for raising awareness. I saw on MTA today where you put out some stuff. So what I would say to people is that, don't just sit back and watch it, step up and be part of the solutions. So I want, shout out to everyone here.
Thank you, Craig.
Sure.
So when we're talking about hate crimes right now against Asian, I have a question. It's recently President Biden has signed a new bill to address the escalating hate crimes against Asians. Can you guys comment on your thoughts and what steps and actions MTA has taken to address these issues?
Sure. I was so pleased that legislation and order sort of made progress, because sometimes, it's sort of unbelievable the things that can get stuck in Washington and have nothing ever happen, even though it seems like so self-evident. But one of the things that we've done, and I'm sure many of you know, Sarah Meyer and Jo Chen and her operation, who are always just sort of so thoughtful and thinking. I feel like they're always a step ahead of the rest of us, and they're so thoughtful about what kind of messaging we should be sharing on buses and in the subway system. And they've done this beautiful campaign that we've used a couple times, which is "Hate has no place," or "No place for hate," or something along those lines, which is really thoughtful and I think really well done. And I feel like has a real impact, because I have people just comment to me about it all the time out of nowhere. Even sometimes it's things like board members and stuff, but a lot of times it's just regular people have noticed it. And I think, so obviously we're supportive of what's happening in Washington, but we're also, taking our own steps here in our system. And would obviously like to hear from all of you if if you're seeing the campaign, if you think it's a good one, if you think it needs any changes. Good, see some thumbs up, so that's good. So so that's sort of where I am on it. But I think we should also be open to what else we can be doing and should be doing to be helpful.
Yeah, no, the one thing I just wanted to share is, and again, my close colleague here, Zafira, had helped me with some prep. She just provided me a stat that I just want to share with everyone. It's an unfortunate stat, but the number of anti-Asian hate crime incidents have actually increased over 200%, right, recently, which is really, really unfortunate. And speaking of Washington, really, from my perspective, and again, this is just my own editorial here. It's really unfortunate how the narrative over the last year has been around, origins of COVID and where it came from, and over politicized and maybe over communicated in the media, and you combine that with what's happening in and around New York City with homelessness, emotionally disturbed people, and then you sort of have a toxic mix that sort of has come together, and it's really unfortunate. What I would say is we even had a specific one that in my head, an anti-Asian crime, a bus operator. I don't know if anyone saw this, but a couple months back, I think it happened in March, a bus operator actually came off, an Asian bus operator came off his bus when he saw an elderly Asian couple being harassed. This happened in Brooklyn. It happened in I think it was Bensonhurst, Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, and came off the bus just to try to help the elderly Asian couple. And sure enough, he then got assaulted and beat up pretty good, which is unfortunate. I think we worked with the police. I think they did find the perpetrator, so some justice was served, but just an unfortunate incident, and something that again, the way we hopefully get past this is by highlighting these type of incidents and making sure that people recognize that it won't be tolerated, and that we need to move past this for sure. So, Jay, anything more you want to add?
I think you and Sarah covered it pretty well, but I would say that I know Jesse and Cindy have told us about events happening around the city, and there are many MTA employees that I thought attended the events and the rallies and took photos and submitted them, right? And we had a campaign on MTA today as well. So those are all great things that we're doing as initiatives to stay informed as well, right? So that's something that I wanted to acknowledge as well.
Thank you, guys.
I think
So-
you didn't mention her.
Oh, Divya, go.
No, I think you didn't mention her background and Q.
Well, okay, let's go to the next question. It'll be a little lighter this time. As a leader, how do you celebrate diversity of ideas and people with regards to the API group, which is the Asian Pacific Islander groups?
Sure. Well, the one thing, again, I think I mentioned it, but I just wanted to share is that I really do believe that having diversity, inclusiveness in the workplace gives the best outcomes, right? And when I say diversity inclusion, it's not just about people's physical appearance; it's more about their thoughts, diversity of background and what everyone brings to the table based upon how their life experiences have been, and they could all share that together as a team when we're solving problems or trying to get the best outcomes for our customers. So, I really believe in my own professional life that bringing people to the table of all different backgrounds, and sometimes when we look at diversity, it's not only about diversity in ethnicity, but it's diversity of experiences, professional experiences, right? So some of us maybe grew up in the operations part of it, right? Some of us grew up in support areas, right? Whether it be budgeting areas, operations planning, and just being open to everyone's thoughts specifically is important. I also do truly believe that, leadership team should also be reflective of our workforce, right? I think in buses specifically, I think the number is about 8% of buses employees are Asian American Pacific Islander, right? Which is not a heck of a lot, right? But it is a 10%, 10% of our employees. So, on a leadership perspective, it should also be representative. And again, that doesn't only apply to Asian Americans, but whether it be African Americans or Hispanic Americans or the like. So, just some of my thoughts around that. Thanks.
And to add is our cultures and diversity bring us to some level of collaboration, right? And it's a creative way of thinking that all our backgrounds bring. And as Craig said, it doesn't have to be about ethnicity. It could be just about someone has an engineering degree versus a communications degree. It helps us become a better MTA in providing service to our customers. So I know Sarah's in transit, FYI, to go to the veterans event. So she, I know she's on the phone and listening, but she may not chime in on all the questions.
Yeah, and talking about what Craig mentioned about the leadership. So I was thinking, how has your experience, all of you can chime in, how has your experience prepped you to work with a diverse population? And please tell us your experience and advice as an MTA executive regarding that.
Sure. So I'll share with you some personal experience that has always, stayed with me. Is that I came to the company in 1989 from, as I said, Stony Brook. I was a mechanical engineer. I started with car equipment department in subways for 3 years. Then I came over to buses in 92 as in what the MTA used to have is called the Future Managers Program. I'm not sure if everyone's aware of that, but it was a management training program. The reason why I give that background is because I was an outsider coming to buses. So I know what it means to be an outsider and to be looked at as an outsider so that, when you're talking to people, you don't feel like you get the full story, right? You don't feel like they're sharing all the information that they could be sharing, right? And it really took some time to sort of break that barrier down so that people in buses saw me as a bus person, right, as opposed to an outsider. And it's always stuck with me, right? Or I try to, even when my sort of natural biases kick in, because we all have natural biases, I always try to re-kick myself to remember certain life experiences such as that, to say, you know what, just pause there and listen, right? Listen at that thought, right? And take it in. And maybe, you don't necessarily agree with the thought, right? But there's value in hearing the thought because people think in that regards, right? So you need to be more open-minded in certain cases. So I guess what I'm trying to get at, and maybe I'm being circuitous in getting it at, is that that's a life experience that has stuck with me. The fact that I grew up or I started in buses as an outsider and felt what it meant to feel as an outsider. I want to now, as an insider in buses, give other people opportunities to feel embraced where they might not have.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. When you said the natural bias, we all have that unconscious bias and implicit bias. 2 days back, I was sharing with Cindy and Jesse that when I was in the Home Depot, one of my friends gave me a new jacket, and it's kind of very dark blue. And I was picking up the flowers there, and somebody came and I was like, "Are you working there?" So I said, "No." So it's I was thinking, I have been there, I have asked many people like, "Oh, do you work here?" So it's a unconscious way of like thinking, okay, that person, because the way they look, the way they dress up, the way, it's in all of us. And it takes awareness, it takes some training. And in our workplace, I think it's very much evident. And when I came to this country, when they ask, "How are you?" I pause and I stop. I'm good. By the way I'm answering, the other person is no more there. They just go. And it took some time for me to understand that, okay, New Yorkers are always busy, but I take time. I don't want to be in the rat race, but it takes time and patience to know the other person. And thank you for your thoughts. And Jay, what's your experience?
So I'll say I have, a little story is I think when I started as an analyst in the Department of Treasury, one of the directors stereotyped me, I wanted to say, and called me a workhorse. And I was at first very taken back of like, why did you call me a workhorse? But I work hard, right? And that's something culturally I learned that, you have to work hard and you move up and things like that. But I think she was stereotyping and took it for granted that all I'm good for was to produce work. And so I bring that to when I work with people have feelings and people have different experiences and they work hard for a reason, right? It's not just because they're a workhorse. So I try to make sure that, you identify people for the ethics that they're putting forward, and it's not just cultural stereotypes. It's about the product and what they're doing and how they're helping. Because I thought that was a very interesting conversation I had once with my director, because I wanted her to see me as more than an analyst and also start taking on leadership roles. And I think that was holding me back a little because that's how she thought of me. And so that was interesting. And so I've always taken that sort of learning and make sure when I work with my team that I make sure everybody has a seat at the table. They're expressing their opinions. They're allowed to speak up. They're allowed to give us different, point of view of what I'm asking for. And so that's something that I would say as a leader, I bring. I try not to do those things.
Brilliant. Cindy, do you want to share anything from the chat? There are a couple of questions.
Yeah, so I guess now we can give our attendees some time to submit questions for our speakers. Before we read the questions out loud, we're going to show a short AAPI video. And so during that video, while that video is playing, if you guys have any questions as attendees that you will want to ask Jay, Craig, or Sarah, submit them in the chat box and we'll read them out loud. So thank you.
Or if you have questions for any of us, that's fine too.
May is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month.
What is it? It's a mouthful, for one.
Back in 1977, members of the House and Senate declared the first 10 days of May as Asian Pacific American Heritage Week.
President Jimmy Carter signed it into law, and in 1990, it was expanded to a full month.
They chose May because the first Japanese immigrated to the U.S. in May 1843.
And the Transcontinental Railroad, largely built by Chinese immigrants, was completed in May 1869.
So why do we need it?
Because in 2018, I still have people ask me, "You're Indian. Is that Asian?"
There's so many countries, so many traditions, so many languages, that it's important to know that, there is more to Asia than you actually think.
While this month does represent the heritage of people who came from Asia and the Pacific Islands, our experiences aren't all the same. So my experience as an Indian American isn't necessarily the same experience as a Pakistani American.
There are so many stereotypes about Asian Americans. We need this month to let people know that all Asians are different.
Our cultures are not trends. Our cultures are there to just show that that's just who we are. It's nothing exotic, it's just our culture, so please don't wear it like a costume.
Next time you eat ramen, samosas, all of that good stuff that you love, you can finally kind of understand where this culture is coming from. Like matcha lattes, come on guys, matcha lattes are not just a new trending thing, it's from Japan, hello.
There's not a lot of representation or not a lot of people talk about it, especially like in the West. So I think having this month is very important.
Even though it's exciting to have a month dedicated to our heritage, it's a pretty broad month.
Asian American and Pacific Islander covers all of the Asian continent.
So China, India, Japan,
Indonesia, Vietnam,
Thailand, Singapore, the Philippines, Pakistan, Bangladesh,
North Korea, South Korea, Myanmar, Cambodia,
Sri Lanka, Taiwan, Nepal,
Laos, and Malaysia.
Holy shit, that's a lot of damn countries. And there's a lot of us out there.
We're also talking all of the Pacific Islands of Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia.
Russia, Central Asia, all of the stands.
It's a lot of countries to cover in 1 month.
there are a lot of stereotypes and misconceptions that we still have to deal with.
That I'm Oriental, because I'm not a rug.
That I'm exotic. I'm not exotic. I am a human.
When I'm standing next to my mother and I'm walking down the street and the moment she starts speaking, people, like I can just see people start to disrespect her just because of her accent or just because of what she's wearing.
The whole fetishization of Asian American women in general, that we are supposed to act a certain way and they were supposed to be and look a certain way, I just don't like that.
So when you see an attractive person who may be Asian, they're not attractive for an Asian. They're just attractive.
And we still have a lot that we can learn from each other. My own sister wasn't sure that Kyrgyzstan was actually a country in Central Asia. It is, and that's part of this month.
So even though she's Indian and I'm Pakistani, we both grew up in America.
And even though there's a long history of conflict between our heritages, we can still be friends.
We can still be friends.
I hope you guys enjoyed that video. So we have received one question. The one question from an attendee is, how does sharing / exchange of food help to make us more open to diversity? And what are some other things that can be shared or done to assist in this effort?
The question is from Gabe, our abilities group.
So
What?
I'll start. Okay. I was going to say, sort of through food, I think we all experience different cultures. It gives us the ability to try something new. There have been points in, when food brings, if we have we used to have at New Jersey Transit, we used to have a multicultural day where everybody would bring potluck and pre-COVID, obviously. And you get to try different cuisines, right? And it brought people to an understanding. It also allowed you to ask questions, which I thought was important because through that you would have more conversation. And, they say that's true around the dinner table. You have great conversation. I think food brings us together in that aspect. Craig, sorry.
No, not at all, not at all. No, I appreciate the question. I was only asking to clarify the question because I didn't understand it, but now I understand it. Just again, I just go back on share some experiences. I think 2 years ago, this was pre-COVID. I was acting executive vice president of New York City Transit when Darryl Irick was asked to be acting president of Transit. He brought me over there for a while, and because I was holding that position, I was asked to attend the Diwali celebration, right? Diwali, just to say a couple of words. But if it wasn't for that I was in that position, I probably would have never attended, right? And what I'm just getting at is that I really learned a lot, by attending about Diwali, or I learned a lot. I didn't know anything about it beforehand, so anything I learned was more than I knew. But it really opens my eyes and gives me a better understanding of what Diwali meant and what's important to other cultural groups, right? And of course, the food was delicious, which I normally wouldn't eat. But I just think in my head that, like, when these things are posted, I think it's just natural that Indian Americans in this particular case would migrate to that particular event, right? I wonder if there's any value ahead of saying like Diwali celebration for non-Indian Americans, right? In other words, people come enjoy lunch, but you get a chance to learn what exactly is Diwali, right? And you know, it was interesting that I learned. I think depending on where you're from in India, I think you spell it differently, right? Some Deepavali or Diwali or something that just found kind of interesting that I'm just sharing here, but my only point is, people coalesce around lunch and the food, but you really get a chance to learn a lot about cultures of your, the people you work with.
Yes, great. You're absolutely right. I'm from the south part of India, so we call Deepavali. So
Deepavali.
it's Deepam is light, so it's a festival of lights and the truth over evil. And whereas in the north part, it's called Diwali. And most of the festivals in India we celebrate together, irrespective of our religion, and we live in harmony. Unity in diversity, that's what we say in our tourism logo. So yeah, and in Livingston, we all take part. Like it's not just Indians. At 130 Livingston, most of us come together, and usually from 2 Broadway also guests come. Yeah, and pre-COVID, as Jay said.
Yeah, I want to mention that Jay actually was hosted with Transportation one year. We went out to eat Malaysian food together. None of us are Malaysian, but we went out together to try out family style too. Post COVID, now it's like, I don't know if we're going to share food from the same dish anymore. But that was a fun time where we were able to share like a variety of different foods together. We tried out Malaysian food together.
Hopefully we'll be back there soon, Cindy.
Yes, and then we can share some Indian food, some Malaysian food, some other food. So another question we got from our attendees is, what leading actions can senior leadership take now despite the transformation to integrate more Asian Americans in decision-making roles and policy-making within operating agencies?
Yeah. So I guess I'll start with that. Sure. So I was just having a conversation. I'll tell you, and let me just give again credit where credit's due. So the fact that I was attending this event today, transportation event, I'm in my car. I don't tell many people, but I drive to work. In the morning I should be taking the bus, but I'm driving, and I'm thinking about the fact that I am part of this event, right? And I also know that currently we have a number of leadership positions in buses that are open. And, just gave me an opportunity to think and say, okay, well, how can I promote greater diversity, whether it be Asian American diversity or other ethnic groups? So, I picked up the phone. At that time it was 5:30 in the morning, so I didn't want to pick up the phone, but I texted Alberto Richardson, who's my HR. He used to be my vice president of HR, but now he's working in the People's Tower anyway. And I said, Alberto, I wanted to talk to you about this. What are some of the things that as we hire, we could use to promote, diversity and share my values for diversity with the panels that are going to be interviewing people and the like. So we had a little bit of a conversation around that, and we came up with some strategies on how we can do that. Last year also, and I'm trying to remember what was the impetus for that. Yes, this was around the I think it was a Begin event, right? I'm the exec sponsor of Begin, and it happened to coincide about what was happening in regards to the social equity and that issue, in America. And what I implemented at that point is starting that whenever I make a promotion, I want to make sure that it's not just that on the back end, EEO takes a look at it to make sure, but on the front end to make sure that we have an inclusive panel, an inclusive group of candidates that we interviewed, and then we make sure that we have that conversation always around hiring. So, those are some of the things. I had mentioned earlier that I recognize that in my leadership team, I want to have diversity in my leadership team, and it should be somewhat representative of the workforce. And I try to strive for that. So those are just some of my thoughts there.
I would add, I think encouragement, right? I think encouraging our employees to apply for jobs that they may not think they're, well qualified for, but I think it is something that I think we can all do as executives is encourage our teams, right? Whether it's senior leaders or managers that are currently in positions, that these positions are open to everyone and that you should apply if you think you're qualified and it's an interview, right? So that's what I would say.
Thank you. Cindy, I saw you about this. Did you have another question you want to say?
No, no more questions because we're at the 12:28 mark right now. We had a good conversation and time flew by. So I'm passing it to you, Jessie.
So I mean, I'm gonna close off. I want to add on that a little about myself is I'm first generation here. My parents are from Hong Kong when it was under British rule, and I growing up here. While when I was young, I didn't realize I was very poor, but you're happy as a kid because you don't know better. So I do value and with the transitions happening in Hong Kong the past couple of years as well, in terms of anyway, I'm going off track of democracy and stuff. But anyway, and a little bit more in terms of I want a little tip to add on the diverseness is, I speak Cantonese. I grew up watching a lot of TV and film that was in Mandarin, so I learned a bit of Mandarin there. I took, classes in college of Korean and Japanese. So I also watched a lot of different TVs that are made in Korea, Thailand, Japan, where else? One other country. But anyway, I like, kind of, because I found that after watching it, it's a lot of similar stories, but, there's little nuances of how the cultures are different also. But so that's my little tidbit. Thank you, to our guest speakers so much. You guys have been great and showing your support, showing that, that it's stronger, that we're all in it together. And we have support, and we support other groups as well, and it's very important, especially during these difficult times. And thank you for our panelists. Thank you, Cindy, for your flyer. That was lovely.
Oh, thanks.
So if I don't know if any one of you else would like to also add in any last comments or.
We're just really grateful that you guys were able to join today to talk about these
Thank you for
topics.
being here with us.
Mm-hmm. So when I close off, there'll be an automatic survey. If you could take a moment to fill it out, and if you want to find out more about us, please visit our website, which you'll have a screen in a moment, but you'll also get the survey. So thank you again for everyone for being here. We hope to see more of you guys, and we'll have more discussions because that's how things get started. It starts with dialogue. I do want to mention one more thing. It's like a lecture. It's like what I've learned is I had to reflect within myself and reflect on my own personal biases and my own personal stereotypes. And we all know we have it. It's just that we don't really want to say it. In addition to hoping to kind of spread awareness to others to be more open-minded and to be more embracing, we sometimes have to look at our own kind of things that we learned over the years from experience. It doesn't have to be about racism or anything, but just so I think that's a good starting point. Other actions probably is needed, but again, there's a lot of limitations, so there's things we work with, but we'll try our best, and everyone's, I think, takes a piece of the responsibility.
Yeah, and the 9 transit groups, we are working on all those implicit bias and conscious bias training and discussions where we can bring the change together.
And if there's any suggestions, please let us know. We're here. We want to help. And we're, and we're an employee resource group, but we're here. We really want to do something for you guys.
Yeah, and I love that we're able to talk to the executives, because people are kind of sometimes afraid to talk to executives because they're like, oh, they're high up there. But talking to Craig, hey, Stony Brook, what? we went to Stony Brook together. And like, talking to Jay, it was like, hey, my husband's from India too. So it's like, there's that connection too. We may look different, but there's a lot more like similarities that we have together instead of differences. And I think like having conversations like these will like let everyone know like what kind of similarities we actually have instead of, us looking different, are different and stuff like that.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you all again for joining today.
Thank you, TransportAsian. Thank you.